Ladies and gents, welcome to Hangar Chat 6B. Cliff has asked me to do some heavy editing. Heavy editing. Oh, I'm not going to cut this out. I'm going to leave it in. I think it's funny. Anyway, Hangar Chat 6B. There is some heavy editing. God. I'm leaving it in. Editing. And this is purely for privacy reasons. I do hope you enjoy it. We're having quite a laugh here. I do apologise about the quality of Hangar Chat 6A. That was my fault. I was trying to use some software that just wouldn't work, and this time it worked. So you're going to get better quality. So please enjoy Hangar Chat 6B with heavy editing.
Right. So, Cliff.
Yes, mate. Yeah.
I am of the understanding, a little angel told me.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that you have a pilot's license.
And that's true. That's very true. I wasn't going to mention it, but yes. Yeah.
Tell me about your pilot's license, Cliff, because this is a bit of a secret. Nobody seems to know about this.
Yeah. Well, all it is that about 10, 12 years ago, a mate of mine said, "Do you fancy learning to paraglide?" I said, "Yeah, I do, mate." And he said, "Okay, well, I'm doing it now. I'll teach you to paraglide if you teach me to fly gliders, model gliders." I said, "Yeah, good deal." Okay, because we just met then. And so I started to learn to paraglide up on the moors, and that was great fun. In fact, the BBC were filming the day I qualified, actually, so that was quite good. So I got a bit of a videotape of the interview. Anyway, that was the start of paragliding, and then we got fed up with standing up on the moors in absolutely no wind. So they said, "Let's get motors strapped to our backs so we can go paramotoring." So it's the same wing, but with a two-stroke motor on your back, and that was great fun. And we did that for a while, cruising around the local area summer evenings, until we lost our takeoff field. Basically, the farmer got a bit jittery with all the noise and apparent danger. It wasn't dangerous, well, not really. And so then he said, "Shall we get a pilot's license?" I said, "Well, Chris, yeah, that's a great idea." So we went, and he started before me, actually. He was about 6 months ahead of me. But he was learning on the school plane, and I went and bought my own X-Air. You'll see a picture of it now if Nick can get it up on the screen. So that's basically, it's a kit plane, but it's a 3-axis microlight, 2-seater side by side.
Yeah.
And that's the one I think the guy built it. It was one owner, and we drove up to London and flew it back down. And that photograph was taken halfway down. We stopped at the little airfield, nearly ran out of fuel, actually. Stopped to refuel. And
is this a canvas covered frame?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's all canvas covered. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, aluminium frame, canvas covered.
Yeah, to buy this.
I recovered that, actually. We had a new skin for it.
Yeah.
Because the skin gets porous after a while. It was fail. It's like airplane MOT. So
yeah.
I recovered it. It's just like covering a model aeroplane, only bigger. Recovered it and put it back together, and we carried on. We landed, had a cup of tea, and then flew on down. I embellished it a bit with I put the doors back on, which it didn't have, and tidied up the cockpit area. But you can't. The frustrating thing with a full-size plane is you can't just think, "Oh, I'll fit this or screw that in." Every part has to be traceable. So if you buy a nut and bolt, it has to be from a recognised distributor of aeroplane components, and it has to be all properly strength tested. And if it should fail, you have to have the paperwork to back up where it was bought, when it was bought, in case there's a bad batch and other people, suffer.
It's traceable.
Traceable.
Yeah. So where is this aircraft now?
I sold it. I sold it on to, yes, well, what happened basically, I had the T-shirt. I had my fun out of it, and but the training was brilliant because I could train in my own aeroplane. And to start with, you're not really certain that it's going to withstand the rigors of flight and all the rest of it. But once you've done a few lessons, and you put the aeroplane through quite a few sort of stressful type maneuvers, you get a lot of confidence in it. But what's amazing is that when you pre-flight your full-size plane, you walk around, check all the control surfaces, make sure nothing's dropping off, basically.
Yeah.
Because if you take off, you think, oh, hang on, I didn't check the elevator hinge or something, you're going to spoil your day because you're going to be worrying about it the whole time. So you give everything a good check. But the amazing thing is you do exactly the same check when you're doing your BMFA test. Yeah. You're really thorough, perhaps more thorough than you would normally be just when you go flying, just check the controls and this wing on, off you go. But it's exactly the same. You're checking every component as if it were a full-size aeroplane or model aeroplane.
I think you're more thorough as well because it's not just the model. Your life.
Well, exactly. Your life's on it, and you don't have a parachute in that. In between doing that, I did a bit of skydiving actually, and you've got a spare. Well, and with the paragliding, you've got a reserve, so you've got a lot of confidence that you can just at least you've got a backup, So but then in an aeroplane, if the engine goes,
you're not scared of heights, then, Cliff?
Oh yes, I don't like heights. Oh no. When you're flying, you look at the view. If you go on the top of a very tall hill, you admire the view, don't you? And there's ground beside you. In an aeroplane, you can admire the view. Just don't look down because you kind of get used to it. But you've got wings, so it gives you confidence,
Yeah, a bit like that pair of wings you got behind your head there, my mate.
Oh, those there, yeah, just like that.
Maybe your time has come.
Oh yeah, I saw a great cartoon in an aero modeler once. There was a guy. They were all up in heaven on the clouds and that as angels, and one guy was out soaring everybody else because he had a NASA 6402 wing section or whatever it was. He had a really efficient wing. The others just had a basic Clark Y, and they just couldn't stay up, But it was a great little aeroplane. It was a great experience. I think it's soloed after 14 hours. But I spent probably prior to that a good 50 hours on the Microsoft Flight Sim.
Wow.
You can download your map of the Southwest and a wire map as well, so it gives you terrain, 3D like. Yeah. And so I'd flown solo for dozens of hours before my instructor actually said to me, "Do you fancy flying solo, Cliff?" Cool, yeah, I'm ready, because I was ready. I was super confident.
So how far have you been in this kite?
I only ran the local Southwest area. Yeah.
Oh, you've not been over the channel then, or anything like that?
No. To fly over the channel, you need to have a bit of an emergency kit on board, transponder and life jackets and all sorts of stuff. Well, basic kit, but you need it nevertheless. I don't swim, so you
jump out of an airplane, but you don't swim.
Well, you don't swim in the air, do you?
That sounds.
if you're gonna land in a parachute or a paraglider on water, you have to release your harness and slip out before you get there. Otherwise, you just get tangled up in all the lines and drown anyway. So at least you stand half a chance doing that. But it was a great experience. And some days I do miss it. And a mate of mine still does paramotoring. And a couple of times he said, "Why didn't you come up and have a go?" I forgot what license you need for that now. But that was great fun. But I suppose in all, I only probably did about 50 hours in my logbook. But it was a case of
so many hours to keep your license, or
yes, you do, yeah. Well, keep your license, but really to take passengers up. With I think I'm right in saying probably now a couple of hours training, and I would be able to go solo again. But you'd have to do a little bit more to take a passenger with you. But first time I took my wife up, I've got a couple of videos actually online with a crude camera of just doing the checks and going around to the end of the runway and taking off and flying around to a local town, just circling around. Then the camera went, but I think there was one moment where I just sort of dropped my glasses and look into the camera and give a thumbs up or something, just to prove it was me in there.
Well,
But the first time you take off solo, oh my goodness, fantastic. Just to sit on the end of it's old wartime runway at Dunkerswell, and they do a lot of skydiving there, and there's lots of private planes, but it's a long, long runway, something like 2,000 feet, and sit there in your little aeroplane with your hand on that throttle, and you just call, you've checked airway, everything's clear, and you're sitting there and you think, oh, I'm ready to go, and you're on the white line, and you just open that throttle up, and you kick back in your chair a bit, and you just watch the speedo come up, keep it straight on the center line on your rudder, and then when you just hit the airspeed, it was about 55, I think that's all, just pull back on that stick and up you go, climb up to the circuit height, 800 feet, and away you go. Fantastic.
Did you loop the loop?
No. Spiral dived. Spiral dive. In the training, you do something called unstable attitudes. So the instructor will say, right, Jimmy will say, okay, Cliff, now I have control, and he'll just put the nose down and he'll start a bit of a spiral going on, and he'll say, right, what do you see? I say, right, Jim, the airspeed is climbing rather rapidly, and I can see a farmhouse below going round and round, so I know I'm in a sort of a spiral. He said, okay, over to you. First thing you do, of course, shut the throttle, pull the stick back, and correct the spiral with opposite rudder, and you just pull out. And then you do a stall test. That's pretty good. You just keep flying, throttle back, stick back, and the plane nose comes up, and you just drop down and stall and recover, And I was really dreading this lesson, but I loved it. It was great fun. And all the time, he'll just suddenly say, oh, your engine's gone, and he'll just shut the throttle. And you better have eyeballed a field all the time you're flying for a suitable emergency landing field. And you won't just say, oh, that's a good field. He'll say, well, get down then to within about 2 foot of the field. And boy, because first thing you do, no engine, stick forward. You've got the 3 most important things when flying an aeroplane is airspeed, airspeed, and airspeed. Without that, you're a brick and you're falling out of the sky. So as soon as the engine goes, stick forward, and because you've really got to use the controls, because there's very little speed, control going over them. Yeah. So it's suddenly going from small movements to great big movements, and you really feel like you're flying a flight sim, but all the time, because you're losing height, keeping your speed up. But you've eyeballed the field, you've checked the wind direction all the time. You know where the wind's going because you're looking for smoke trails, that sort of thing. Yeah. And you come down to within 2 or 3 feet. The sheep are running, and he says, "Okay, that's great." You open the throttle and up you go again, and that happens.
It's funny because you brought back a memory for me.
Yeah,
we've spoken before, and I mentioned my father knew Alex Henshaw, who was the Spitfires down at Castle Donington, Castle Bromwich, I should say. And my father told me how to pull out of the spin because Alex Henshaw told him how to do it.
Right.
To basically put the stick forward and get some airspeed, and you'll be all right, and you'll get out of a flat spin or anything,
Yeah.
And I thought, well, he's having me on, but obviously he wasn't having me on, and you just described exactly what you have to do.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty scary, isn't it?
No, wasn't at all, because I knew the wings weren't going to come off because we'd stressed it up to then. I knew it was a solid aeroplane, so it was just a matter of doing it. The best lesson I ever had was the cloud base was about 650 feet, which is 150 feet below the circuit height. I said, "Oh, doesn't look like we'll be able to fly today, Jim." And he said, "See that over there? There was this huge hole in the cloud, slowly working its way towards us." He said, "We're going to take off. We're going to climb up through there till we get to the top, and then." That was the unstable lessons day, actually. So we took off. He said, just fly for it, and when we're under it, we'll just climb. It was a big area, it was probably a mile diameter. And we just climbed up in a big spiral, and we came out on top of that. It was a dull, horrible day down below. We came out on top, and it was bright sunshine, of course. There was a huge blanket of cloud everywhere. By now, we were at about 4,000, I suppose. Huge blanket of cloud with big towering cumulus all around, and it looked like mountains. And he said, "What do you think to that?" I just said, "Wow." He said, "This is why we fly, because we were in heaven. We were in a magical world. Nobody else could appreciate it." And we did our lesson. And of course, we were going downwind slowly with the hole in the cloud, and then we just shut the throttle and just came back down, and we came back into this miserable, horrible day. Came round sort of low, and I landed. And that.
Yeah. Well, again, you've given me another memory, because going back, harping on to Alex Henshaw, he wrote a book, as you know, called Cypher Merlin, and I remember distinctly the cooling towers for making the electricity and so forth, which had been knocked down now. He would say, he would look, if it was cloudy, he would look for this big mass of cold, hot air coming out of the tower, and he knew that if he did a bearing off that, as soon as he got over the top of it, he'd start coming down, and he knew that coming out of the cloud, didn't matter how hard the cloud was, he knew he could land on the runway. And I think he was one of the few people that worked that out, and that is a very dangerous thing to do, you know. Along with being upside down and nuts and bolts and spanners falling into the cockpit off the floor.
Fantastic.
But, well, I'm jealous now.
Well, and of course, this is why I did that Tiger Moth flight a couple of about a month ago now. The video's on my site. I booked it just at the start of COVID, so it's been in the sort of on the back burner for a couple of years. But about 60 miles north of me in North Devon, there's a guy's got a 1941 Tiger Moth, the door of which has been signed by Vera Lynn. And we went up in that one evening, and it being on the north coast where the sun was setting into the sea, and we took off, and the instructor owner said, okay, with your experience, he said, just get hold of the joystick, just right, left, up and down. He said, you gripping the joystick? I said, yeah. He said, well, let go and just hold it with your thumb and forefinger. And do you know what a light control it was for an aeroplane that's 80 plus years old. And then he just said, you know, fly towards.
That ghost is back.
Yeah, it's my drill. He said, just fly, you know, in the distance to that hill, and then we'll turn and do. So anyway, that was a 45-minute flight. I flew for probably 40 minutes, and we came back to the airfield, and he said, do you want to land it? I said, yes. So we did a circuit, because I had actually landed on that field when I had my aeroplane. So I kind of like felt comfortable in the area. And I was holding my little hat cam in my left hand because I wanted to film, and the joystick obviously in my right hand. And there was some guy flying in his microlight, which was based there. This is Eagle Scott Airfield. But he'd landed. So we did a circuit at the airfield. Oh, yes, he's down there. And he said, okay, just line up, bring her in. He said, but I will use the throttle, he said, because I want to keep an eye on the airspeed. Yeah, I had enough to do. So, and it was a beautiful first tail dragger landing I'd done, and it was really lovely. And I was dead chuffed with that. Yeah, but the guy himself was...
It's a Tiger Moth.
Tiger Moth, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got one somewhere. In fact, bear with me one moment.
I shall now fill in, ladies and gentlemen, while Cliff Harvey goes off to play the piano using runner beans that are on the run from the local constabulary. Okay. So
this is the aeroplane that I flew. It's identical. I picked up the registration number, and I said, I've got a model, do you mind? And he said, no, go. So I took photographs of it sitting on the wing and what have you. And this is a beautiful little flyer. This is a Veron free flight model from donkeys years ago. I had a kit from somewhere. Anyway, I built it exactly as the free flight model. It's all held together with rubber bands. The undercarriage, the lower wing, top wing is all banded on. The struts are banded on. The idea being that if it hits the ground, it doesn't break. It just pings apart. But as a 2-channel or 3-channel aeroplane, it's a beautiful flyer. But I haven't flown it much in the last 2 years because I didn't want to break it before I had a chance to do the photo thing. But that's why I built it. Well, in fact, it was part of a YouTube thing I was doing. For every subscriber I got, I put a quantity of money. I can't remember how much now. It was something like, I worked out 18p or something towards the cost of the flight. So when I had enough subscribers, I had enough money to book the flight. So that was Cliff's YouTube Tiger Moth flight.
Wow.
So, but this is tissue covers, tissue and cling film underneath it. So cling film first,
Yeah.
and then tissue on the top, and that stops it from sagging if it gets damp.
Oh, really?
And makes it quite a little bit stronger. Yeah. So the problem I've got is since I put the internet connection into this room,
Yeah.
I can sit and watch videos. But if I'm watching a video, I can't video myself. I can't
No,
start
exactly.
filming a build video if there's a video playing beside me. So
I'm
you've just
saying
got to pinch.
because I've got
Sorry.
what do you call it, an iPad.
Yeah.
Two iPads. So what I do is, if I've stopped filming because I'm doing something a little intense and I don't want to waste the viewer's time,
Yeah.
I will then put the YouTube on and I'll
Yeah.
either listen to it or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So then I catch up on certain things, and I just like to have it on in the background while I'm working away, you know. So it's pretty much the same. But as with all things, it's time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time defeats you.
Yeah.
And then obviously in the summer days, you want to be out flying.
That's it. Yeah.
I've barely been flying because, you know, I've been doing the videos and things. So if it's a windy day like today, I'll be making the videos and whatever. And then on those rare occasions when I'm not at work and the weather's okay, then I'll go out flying. So I think we talked briefly, didn't we, about the car, the MG?
Oh yes, the MG. Yeah. Yeah. I saw one. Well, my uncle had one, and I said, "Oh, this is fantastic. I want one." So I located one, and there's not many left to restore now, but basically I bought a chassis and a bulkhead and built it up from there. A lot of the parts actually came from the States because most of the cars went to the States, so they still break them a little bit over there. So I bought quite a few bits because you can buy almost every part from China, but they don't fit, they don't work, they're rubbish. You're far better to get an original component and restore it. That's why it took 3 years. Yeah.
Unless you know a tinsmith.
A tinsmith. Oh, I see what.
Yeah, well, they what they do is they knock
panel
beater. And like a panel beater.
Yeah. I had to repair, every panel had to be repaired because it was rust in the bottoms or rust here or there. So you're cutting out. I do a bit of welding and a bit of spraying. So it was a very, and my wife does a bit of sewing. So the interior was really scrumptious, white leather or cream leather.
Okay.
So we made a fair old job of it actually. And so I sold it on to a chap in Oxford, which is pretty close to where it was built.
Yeah.
And I managed to trace two owners, previous owners, who had it in the 60s as younger men. One was in the south of France, and the other guy lives in Sydney, Australia.
Wow.
The Australian one, I was able. The guy in the south of France, I went to a previous address because I had the logbook. Went to a previous address, and I said, "Oh, I'm looking for this bloke." He said, "Oh, he doesn't live anymore." I said, "Oh, okay, fair enough." But I said, "I know where he lives because he's my brother." So it was the family home. So he put me in touch with his brother, and he came over for a holiday a few months later, and I reunited him with the car, because he blew him away. Yeah. The guy in Sydney, who was 72, but still working as a solicitor, I think. Yeah. I just emailed everybody with that name, and he came up, Trumps. He said, "Yes, that's me. I own that car." And a little while later, he came over. Well, the same year, he came over again. So I was able to document that visit with photographs, and it all went into the history file of the car.
Did you let them have a bit of a drive in it?
Well, to be honest, they couldn't barely get behind the steering wheel. They'd grown a little bit.
Like me.
Well, I don't know, but yes, but it was great. It was great to reunite them. I said, "Is this your signature in the logbook in 1962?" "Yep, that's my name." And you think, my goodness, all those years later.
The chassis for the MG, I know that Morgan's had a wooden chassis. Was that a metal chassis or a wooden chassis?
Oh no, it's steel. Yeah.
Steel.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking about the Morgans because they have a wooden.
The Morgans were being built at the same time, and they were. I'll probably get into trouble for saying this, but they were always inferior.
Yeah.
In build quality. obviously all the sports cars are gone, but Morgan is still soldiering on. So now they're sort of sought after because they're built in a traditional way by, you know, a couple of blokes in a sort of a small setup using modern mechanicals. So they're very pretty cars.
They are, right.
I had a Morgan kit car replica based on a Triumph Herald chassis, I think it was, which was good fun. We did the hair motoring when you had hair, you know, it was great. In fact, with the MG, I used to drive with a flat cap, and my granddad's departed granddad's pipe. So obviously I don't smoke, but I have it in my mouth, like that, driving along with my tweed jacket. You saw the pictures of the Tanky the Dalek then?
Yes, I have it here. There you go. There's Tanky the Dalek, if you can see that at all.
Oh, yes. There I am. Yay!
Yes, posing. That is actually very, very impressive. Really, you've got quite a talent going on there. You really have. I'm quite envious of that.
Well, I just did it one bit at a time, really. That's all you do, isn't it? A bit like
now,
building an airplane.
Now that you're 6'2", I can scale that now, because I'm 6'3".
Oh, are you right? Okay.
Yeah.
Was that round or high?
What?
Was that a round circumference?
With this belly, yeah, probably. At least I'll never drown. But
you might beach though.
Well, yeah, but they'd drag me back in, wouldn't they?
They'd have to soak you with water first, then, to keep you alive.
So I reckon that's about 5 foot high. That Dalek.
Yeah. It's not actually on its chassis at the moment, so that actually lifts it another 6 inches.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's kind of cool. I do like that.
Yeah.
I have to admit. No wonder it took you so long to do. And wow.
In total, yeah. And they flatten out to a sheet about 3 foot by, well, sort of 5 foot.
Okay.
But it's surprising the different grades. The more modern ones are like you can cut with scissors. They're really, really thin once you scrape the spray foam off. And but the older ones are like probably 1/16 of an inch thick. You need an angle grinder to cut. So I don't sort of shout about the fact it's made.
Well, in that case, then I will edit that bit out.
Yeah. It's just metal. Yeah, metal Dalek.
See what I can do.
Yeah.
I can't. The thing is, I can't remember if we've been talking about it earlier with you. I know. It's got to go missing now.
Yeah.
So camping nearby.
Okay.
So, Cliff.
Yes, mate.
Besides admiring my cleaning pearly white teeth, you obviously you've got to pay for these kits and everything else, and the time and effort that goes into these things. So, you know, what is it that you do to pay for all of this? What is your income? Where's that come from?
Well, I'm independently wealthy, Nick. That's not true. I make a few pennies from YouTube, from the adverts and that sort of stuff. And that just about covers my club memberships and that sort of stuff. It's not very much. But I have recently introduced YouTube memberships to the channel. So if anyone wanted to support me financially, just a small amount every month, but that really helps me to buy more balsa wood. Anyway, what do I do for a living? Well, I haven't studied at uni to do the same thing all my life, which would be terribly boring, like both my brothers are to do. I'd like to say I do something in the aeronautical line. I've lost you, but never mind. I do something in the aeronautical line, but because I don't, I started. I've done 20 years at the local paper, and then I went on to.
What was you doing with the paper?
What you call it?
Was you?
Delivering, yeah. Smart boy, able to cycle.
Yeah.
No, I worked on the production side, compositor. That was before computers came in, and we did computers for quite a few years, and then moved on after 20 odd years.
So is that where you get all the letters and you put them into blocks?
Yes, exactly that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, on the local evening paper, which is now a weekly. But it was great, and the camaraderie back then was great. And we're talking about the 70s, the 80s, early 90s. It was a great time.
Yeah.
Uh,
All
and
this is going on.
yeah, and then I did a bit of self-employment, painting, decorating, and general DIY type stuff. You know, I'm a master of all trades.
People wanted newspaper wallpaper, did they?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I'm an expert at hanging the local rag.
Yeah, why not? That makes good, you know.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh, I have been in the paper a few times. It's another story. And then I went on to, I did 7 years at Nortel Networks, which is an electronics, optoelectronics company in Paynton, which has now moved to China. We employed about 5,000 people. It's a huge thing, 24/7 operation. But I was making small little what's called gallium arsenide. They're basically shunts that shunt on the opto. The opto comes in as light, flashes a laser, and goes out the other side to the next 50 miles of line. And one of these little widgets I was making, they were horrendously expensive, like tens of thousands of pounds. But one of these could handle like all the phone calls from a major city going through it. I mean, they were fantastically powerful. And that was really interesting. We had a great team, and that was good laugh, but it all shunted off to China. So that was quit. Then a driving instructor for 3 years. And that was okay. It's a teaching job, but a little bit monotonous after a while, a little bit samey.
Yeah.
And then for the last 13 years, I've been working for the NHS at local hospital, doing patient transport. So we're ferrying patients from hospital to hospital, or hospital to home, or home to hospital. And I'll tell you what a job. It's the last job I shall do. And you meet some fantastic people. You've only got to say, so where were you during the war? Because they're all old people. Well, mostly actually. A lot of them are younger than you, and it puts you in, you know, how grateful you are just to be healthy enough to walk home. But you say to an old person, where were you during the war? And off they go with these fantastic stories of, I've met pilots, I've met Spitfire pilot, Lancaster, observation, Bristol Beaufighter pilots, girl that worked in the ops room pushing the little things around on the table, and a lady on a Hurricane production line telling me stories. Oh, just fantastic.
I bet it's been an education, isn't it? Especially if you're into history and that sort of thing, you know. Because I mean, we mentioned the Great War earlier, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm a big buff on the Great War, and the amount of things I learn every day. Every day I learn something.
You mean the First World War?
Yeah, it was called the Great War. See, this is where you're going to learn something now, because it was called the Great War because there hadn't been a First World War, so they couldn't call it the First World War because there hadn't been a Second World War.
Of course,
so it was the Great War.
Of course, it was. Yeah.
When World War II started, then it began to be called the First World War.
Yeah.
So I always call it the Great War.
Yeah. Right.
If you want to know more, you got to pay me.
I won't pay you, actually.
Because we're not here to interview me, we're here to interview you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's good. It's a sign of a good interviewee if he can turn the conversation back around to the interviewer. So tell me, Nick, how did you?
It was pure luck.
Yeah. Can I ask you, actually, in all seriousness, when you started your YouTube channel, could you ever envisage you doing this?
No. I had no idea what direction it was going to go in, or why, and I'm not really sure whether, you know, when I started this, whether I would keep it up or not. And it was just a bit of an experiment, if I'm being truthful with you.
Yeah.
But my actual incentive was just to say, look, you know, there's not enough people out there showing people how to do things, and I actually started with the dinky toys. How to reimburse a dinky toy to factory condition, including those little electric motors, because the motors are over 50 years old. And how to make them work, and if one's missing, how to obtain one, and how to paint them and everything else, and get them back to factory condition. And the only reason I was doing that is because I'm the youngest of 5 boys. So when you're the youngest of 5 boys, you get kicked and punched nearly every day, and they take all their toys off you. And my biggest eldest brother took my Spitfire, Dinky Toy Spitfire, off me. And then a few years ago, I was passing a shop called Retro Toys in Station Road, Erdington, that happens to have a giant Dalek in the.
Oh, really?
And I bought a Dinky Spitfire, and it started from there, because now I can say, that's mine, you can't have it.
Yes.
And that was the only real reason I bought it. I don't go flying around the house with it or anything, but it's mine, and it belongs to me, and I'm big enough now to stop you from taking it from me.
Yes.
Model-wise, I mean, I look at you, I look at Tim. What I tend to do is I will flick through the scrolls and just see something that actually catches my eye, and I think, okay, yeah, we'll have a look at that. And or if
that's interesting, because what catches your eye then? So it's the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're always going. The guru's always gone about it starts with the thumbnail and then the hook in the video to get them going and get them, and then you have to keep the viewer, watching right to the end.
Yeah.
And for those that don't do videos, that's a really difficult thing to do. And I don't spend a lot of time doing my thumbnails. I'm probably the longest one I've spent time. I just do a screen grab from the video normally, or maybe one post photograph, but that's it.
Yeah.
But they either want to watch my, because it's educational. If they want to know how to cover a wing, then they'll watch a video on how to cover a wing. I like to I like to read down through the comments of other people's videos, and if someone makes a comment that I think he sounds an interesting bloke, I'll click on his channel and look at his content and maybe his about section and think, oh, I'll subscribe to him. And that's how I discover people, because if people don't comment, they're invisible to the world, so I'll never find them. And the people you've just mentioned, I've never heard of. Yeah, but they're out there, aren't they? But if you don't know what to, and Google's very good. Sorry, YouTube's very good at when you click on YouTube and it comes up for the first time, the homepage is loaded with stuff because it knows your viewing habits, with stuff that you really will be interested in. And of course, if I'm trying to do some work, I literally cover it up so I don't see it when I can click onto whatever I want to do. Because if I see what's on that homepage, I think I'll watch that first, and then before you know it, an hour's gone by. Yeah,
well, generally I use YouTube as an educational tool. If I'm trying to do something that I'm not quite sure about, I'll interest what it is I'm looking for. So, say for instance, if it's how to bend balsa into a circle, I'll put balsa in a circle, and then certain videos will come up and you have to sort out the wheat from the chaff. And then, so obviously I've been looking for something, you've popped up, I'll have a look at this chap, oh, he seems to know what he's doing, and then you'll come up with something that's you're making, and I go, okay, I'll follow that for see how it's going on. So obviously, if you do something like the fucking DR1, that to me would be very, very interesting to see how you go about it, and try and pick up some hints and tips here, there, and everywhere.
Well, I mean, it was the same company, wasn't it? Dancing with no, yours was Vintage Model, wasn't it?
Oh, well, I have done the Dancing Wings one, the smaller one.
Right. But I mean, there's a little bit of crossover, but if you're making a specific model that's identical to, as long as the person going on explains it, like I watched all of the RC Model Geeks videos because they built one as well, I'm pointing to it. And they have a good fun building it, and they came out because he was like building making a video manual for the company, picking out any, it was an early kit he had, picking out any details, and eventually flew it. But without that, I would have struggled in 2 or 3 places, well, more than that, to be honest. But of course, when I'm doing how-to videos, I'll put, say, something to me which is obvious and easy because I've done it forever. You put something video up and someone says, that's how it's done. I always wondered, and you think, well, I was doing this when I was 12. How
Yeah.
could you want it? And then you realise that in fact you've got a wealth of knowledge that if you didn't share it, it would disappear. So
Exactly.
that's the beauty of YouTube, because people are sticking on a wealth of knowledge, and like just how to retrofit ailerons onto a little aeroplane like this, you know.
Yeah.
I wish I'd done it to start with, but there you go. I didn't. I thought it would turn with that much dihedral, but it wouldn't.
This is exactly what I did with the vintage model company SE5A.
Yeah.
I put ailerons on it that was not designed to have.
No.
And now I have this highly aerobatic model, you know, and it flies very, very well. It's probably my favourite one. Anyway, so I'm going to wind it up. So it's it's goodbye from him.
Yes, and goodbye from me. If you look this way.
Hang on.
Shake hands.
Yes, thank you.
Now give us a kiss.
Oh no, you're pushing it too far now.
Yes, sir. What do you want now?
I am trans.
You want to have your wife put her fist in the screen, so as I come in,
You're getting silly now.
it looks like my arm has come across and tweaked your nose.
Something like that. So
Just like that.
if you put your arm in now, so
Yeah, well, you're wearing a shirt.
well, I'm sorry. No.
Do you remember who was it? Harry Worth used to do the leg thing in the mirror.
Yeah, the shop window.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Now, there's people out there have no idea who Harry Worth is.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick, let's go.
So it's goodbye from him. It's goodbye from Jimmy Clitheroe and my good self.
Okay, mate.
See you later, mate. Ta-ra.
Speak to you soon. Bye. Bye.